Good morning, everybody. Let's do something a little bit different and have a little bit of fun. Let's use ChatGPT to compare content. Let's say you have a piece of content that's not doing as well and you want to compare it to your competitors. So let's take a look at what ChatGPT can do. So this is the paid version. However, I'm going to tell you what you can still do with the basic free plan in case you don't have the paid version. I asked it to compare two pieces of content and I gave it the two URLs. One is from Spruce Pets and it's dogs' paws smell like corn chips. And the other one is from Houston Public Media and it's talking about why dogs smell like Fritos. Now, the first piece of content is ranking much higher than the second piece of content that I asked it to compare. If you have the basic free version, instead of putting in the URLs, what you would need to do is copy and paste the content and then put it into ChatGPT and then ask it to compare. So with the paid version, it's able to read URLs and websites and pages when you have the plugins enabled to do so. So let's talk about the content. It's a little bit of fun to do this, I think. So I'm asking it to compare content 1 against content 2. It gives you the title, it gives you a summary, and then it gives you a comparison under that. Both articles discuss the phenomenon of why dogs' feet are smelling like corn chips or Fritos. But then it talks about how the first piece of content actually delves deeper into the reasons behind the smell, its implications, and treatments available. Then it tells you that the Houston Public Media or content piece 2 is more of a question and answer format. So it's two different formats that we're seeing, where a specific question about the Frito smell is addressed by a veterinarian. So it's giving you a comparison that it found between the two pieces of documents. Now you can continue to ask ChatGPT questions to dial into what is different about the pieces of content. So I asked, does content 2 have a content gap? Remember, content 2 is ranking well below content 1. So what I'm asking is there a content gap that content 2 doesn't cover that content 1 has covered? And it gives me a detailed response that's actually pretty good because it gives you the breakdown of what's not in content 2, but is found in content 1. So it says detailed reasons for the smell. Content 1 explains that dogs can step into smelly things or they can have an indication of an infection. And then it says content 2 only mentions the overgrowth of certain microbes for the reason. So content 1 just goes into a little bit deeper as to many reasons as why they can have the smell, whereas content 2 only mentions one reason. So you can continue to read this. It really tells you what content 1 has, and then it says this detailed list that's in content 1 is not in content 2. So content 1 has specific problems, and it's a detailed list. And it tells you what's in the list. And if you wanted to ask another question, it would even rewrite that list for you if you wanted to then add it to content 2. So it goes into quite a bit of what's missing. It has, let's see, 7 or 8 different items that are missing in content 2 that was found in content 1. So they do have quite a bit of a content gap. Then I asked, does content 1 use words that content 2 does not use? And it gives me a list of the words that's not being used by content 2. You can see irritation, injury, wellness checkups, shampoos, fur, lick, panting, all the words that content 2 doesn't mention at all, which again will help you fill in the content gap if you're having one. I asked, how many headings does content 1 have compared to content 2? So it gives me the breakdowns of headings for content 1, and then it gives me the breakdown on how many headings content 2 has. So content 1 had 5 headings. Now it says content 2 had 1 heading. Let me check real quick. I didn't even look, but let's look real quick because sometimes they're not. Well, it is correct. They literally have 1 heading. Don't do that with your content. It was correct. So content 1 has 5 headings, whereas content 2 has 1 heading. There's quite a bit of a gap on content 2, and it's really dialing in some of the issues or content gap pieces that you could actually add pretty easily. Now, this next part goes a little bit deeper, and you can only use it with the paid version. But what I asked it to do was read the Google search quality guidelines, which is, I don't know, over 170 pages, and then tell me what content 2 could do better after reading that document, and to strictly tell me from that document what content 2 could do better. So what you need to be careful with ChatGPT is sometimes it will give you opinions or tips and tricks that it has read on other websites. But what I'm asking it to do is just to strictly read the Google quality raters guidelines and then tell me what content 2 based off of that could do. So I'm asking it not to give me any tips or tricks or any valuable insights that it thinks that it has. What I want to do is just compare it to the actual guidelines, and it tells me expertise, ensure that the content is written or reviewed by experts in the field. Content 2 is not. It's not reviewed by anybody. It's probably not written by an expert. It did say content 2 does have a veterinarian that provides expertise, but it doesn't look like they're indicating that with their content. So it mentions authoritativeness is missing from content 2. They're not using any citations or sources to back up any of their claims or statements. Trustworthiness is a little iffy on their about page, and it's telling me trust signals are not quite there for these guys. So readers should feel confident about the source and where that source of information is coming from, and they're not giving that off on their website. Comprehensive coverage. So it's asking me to expand on very specific topics and go much deeper into what we're talking about. Then it has user experience. It says avoid misleading information. Now, this one I found interesting because it says ensure that all the information presented is accurate and not misleading. So what I'm wondering is, where is the let's see if we can get it to tell us where the misleading information is. All right, so ChatGPT only works as good as the questions that you ask. Sometimes it takes me a couple of times to get my questions really zeroed in. So I asked it to point out the misleading information. It says it doesn't have any. However, because of lack of citations and lack of experts reviewing or writing their information, and then it has general statements, something like Fritos is common and not harmful, but there's no source or citation to back that up. And while it might be true, it would be beneficial to provide more context or evidence to support claims. Now, this reminds me of when we were back in school and we were asked to write reports, and we had to make sure we had citations and we were actually citing the sources to back up what we were trying to say. After ChatGPT read the Google guidelines, the quality rater guidelines, it specifically pointed out that there's a lack of citations and that we're making general statements. However, we're not citing any sources and we're not backing it up. So that is just a really quick run through. You can ask ChatGPT to compare any pieces of content and then dial in and drill in a whole lot deeper into any of the questions. Compare the headings, compare the titles. Now, with the free version, I asked it to give me a number count of each of the articles, and it told me that it could not do that. But with the paid version, it can. So it told me content piece 1 had 508 words, whereas content piece 2 had 275 words. So you can ask it to compare against any vertical that you wanted to, headings, content. You could even compare the code or the source code of the 2 pages if you wanted to. You could compare across anything you can dream up to ask. The only issue is to make sure that your questions are clear. And if you ask a question and you don't like the answer that it gives you, or the answer is wrong, it just simply means you need to rephrase and train ChatGPT a little bit better. So it's only as good as the questions that we ask, and we must be clear when we ask them. All right, guys, moving forward, I have some really important videos coming up. I have some videos on the core update coming out, comparing against all of the sites that I monitor and pinpointing issues that I'm seeing across the board on those sites that will help us. See you guys in the next video.